Hello, I'm Marites Vitug. Welcome to Southeast Asia Speaks. This is the show where I get to interview resource persons on issues affecting the region. I will be speaking to Vice Admiral Giovanni Carlo Bacordo, former Chief of the Philippine Navy. We will be talking about his first-hand experiences in dealing with Chinese incursions in the West Philippine Sea and also how our Navy compares to those of our neighbors in Southeast Asia. Vice Admiral Bacordo led the Navy for about 14 months. He was the leader during the pandemic, quite a difficult time, and he recently retired in June. Thank you so much, sir, for making time for this interview, and welcome to Southeast Asia Speaks.
Thank you very much, Martes, for inviting me to this show, the Southeast Asia Speak. And it's quite timely because as a retired flag officer in command, I have lots of experience, especially on the South China Sea issues and many other issues.
So maybe, sir, let's start first when you led the Navy. Did you find it to be ill-equipped? And since this is a puzzle, or maybe a question that I've been looking at, is that the Philippines has one of the longest coastlines in the world. I think we're number 5 in the top 10 countries with the longest coastlines in the world. Yet our Navy doesn't rise to the occasion. Hindi ho ganun ka-equipped. Bakit ho?
Martes, I think I can blame it on the mindsets that we had at the time, because after World War II, we were just content with the hand-me-downs from the US Navy. In fact, lahat natin na barko were just hand-me-downs from the US Navy until about the early 90s. We had our first taste of a brand new vessel. This was in 1990. These were the 78-footer patrol gunboats. But before that, everything, all of our vessels, even our airplanes were all hand-me-down. So nobody questioned that. Even at present, we still have 4 World War II vintage Navy ships. But we started decommissioning in huge number starting only in 2019. Another factor that I can see is that there is a low appreciation from our decision makers. Kumbaga, naging kontento tayo na sa status quo. Kung anong budget ng Navy, kung anong budget ng buong DNB, the Navy will just have a certain percentage of that budget, hindi lumalaki. Ganun lang. Let's say for the Navy will have just 15% of the DNB budget, yun na lang. Kasi kung taasan mong Navy budget, that means you have to sacrifice the Army budget or the Air Force budget. So status quo na lang palagi. And even our mindset, tingnan mo Marites, in other countries, the expensive real estate is near the sea. Sa atin, sinong nakatira sa near the sea? Ito yung mga squatters. Ang mga priced real estate is found inland. So we started looking inward. At what stage in our history, I do not know, when we started looking inward and gave more importance on, let's say, in the armed forces, on the Army. Another factor I can blame is the prolonged internal security problem that we have from after World War II, from the Hukbalahaps to the present local terrorist groups. Walang katapusan. After World War II, tuloy-tuloy itong internal security problem natin. So we focus on the land forces. Yun ang dahilan. And another factor I can say is it is really too expensive to maintain a modern Navy. I'll give you some figures. A credible frigate, one frigate with the attendant weapons, communications, and electronic systems will cost at the minimum 30 billion pesos. One anti-submarine warfare helicopter with the required avionics and the weapons, communications, electronics will cost about 5 billion pesos. Ganon kalaki. So mahirap mag-maintain ng modern Navy. So mas cheaper, you go the easy route, you maintain the land forces. With that amount, you can buy so many guns and tanks and helicopters already. Ganun ang nakikita kung factors why we are content with why our Navy is one of the weakest in Asia. Yun ang dahilan.
As flag officer in command of the Navy, nakita nyo na, as you said, ganun pa rin yung mindset na naabutan nyo at ill-equipped pa rin yung Navy. So ano hong ginawa nyo? At least you tried in 14 months. What were your priorities?
Actually, 16 months, Martes. I was the chief of the Navy for 16 months.
Oh, okay.
So
Sorry, correction.
when I took over, the programs I prioritized is based on the premise that we are a modernizing Navy. We are starting to modernize. So if these programs will not be implemented, a future crisis in the Navy's capacity and capability will occur. For example, you buy you buy modern ships, wala ka naman modern na repair facility in your Navy. You buy missile systems, wala ka naman storage facility for these missile systems. So I focused my 16 months on capacitating on this enabling capabilities. So my first program, which I mentioned during my assumption speech, is a sustainment suite for the new platforms, weapons, and sensors of the fleet and the marine. So what is the Navy Command that is in charge of sustainment of all of this high-tech equipment? It is the Naval Sea Systems Command. So my thrust was to capacitate the Naval Sea Systems Command. Another is the inclusion of the material and facility requirements in the modernization package. Sa ating ginagawa, we want to buy, we want to buy, we want to buy, we want to buy ships. Wala naman tayo concern kung may pier facility ba tayo for these ships. We buy helicopter. Mayroon ba tayo hangar for these helicopters? Kasi I can give you several examples, Martes. Way back in the 80s, we had these Emerlec guns installed aboard our fast boats. 5 years later, kahit isang Emerlec gun walang pumuputok because we never acquired the capability to sustain this. Ito na lang, wag na tayo lumayo. Yung British Hong Kong Squadron, when we got this 3 Jacinto class patrol vessel from the British way back in 1987, binigay, when it was given to us, everything functioning. 5 years later, kahit isang baril, walang pumutok. 5 years later, yung mga loiter drive, walang gumagana because we never acquired the capability to sustain this high-tech equipment. So that was the focus. That was the focus of my 16 months. And then another that I focus on is the implementation of the fields of specialization. So hindi pwede, dati, lahat ng Navy officers, you are required to become commanding officers aboard ship para lang tumaas ang ranko mo sa Navy, para maka-achieve ka ng mga star rank level. Now, hindi ganon. Some of us should be technical people. Some of us will be dealing with technical systems like the sensors, like the torpedo systems, the missile systems. Kung i-require mo pa mga officers na yan na maging CEO ng barko, mawala ang technical capability nila. So we ensured that these technical people who will focus on the sustainment of these vessels, they will also have a path for their career advancements in the Navy. So everybody will focus on their fields of specialization. We were removing already the jack of all trades mindset and focusing on the specialist mindset. And the last program, which I think is the most difficult, the most challenging of all, is the modernizing the mindsets of every sailor and marines. So may bago kang equipment, kung ang mindset mo ay lumang sistema pa rin, masisira din yan ang mga gamit nyo. You will still not be able to use it. So you modernize the mindsets of our sailor and marines. Make them believe that we are already modernizing. So the first step that we did is to decommission all legacy. I gave an instruction to decommission all legacy Navy ships. So during my tenure, we decommissioned more than 20 World War II vintage Navy vessels in favor of these newer vessels. Kasi mahirap magsabi na modern Navy ka tapos nakikita mo mga barko nyo ay mayroon pa mga World War II vessels na ginagamit. So you have to decommission this so that your people, the faster your people can assume or have this modernized mindsets. So these 3 areas I devoted my 16 months on these areas, capacitating the Navy personnel, capacitating the organization in order to be better prepared for a modern Navy.
So sir, hindi lang pala budget ang problema. As you were saying, and explain you well, it's the mindset. So how, maybe, do you think if there is a chief of staff of the armed forces na galing sa Navy, may pagbabago kaya? Kasi sir, in our history, wala pa yatang naging chief of staff ng military na Navy except si General Biazon, who stayed
Yes,
only for a few months. So, kailangan ho ba magkaroon tayo muna ng chief of staff na taga-Navy para ma-improve yung mindset?
yun din, that's another challenge, Marites, actually, because I mentioned to you kung bakit walang Navy na naging chief of staff. It's the same factors that I mentioned earlier, like the low appreciation from our decision makers about the importance of the Navy, the prolonged internal security conflict. Because of this internal security conflict, justified to have a dominant army Pero iniisip ko, I've been questioning myself and also some senior officers, bakit masyadong dominant ang ating army? When in fact, wala naman tayong overlapping land borders with any country. Di ba? Our territory is 80% water. We have 7,600 islands, long coastlines na banggit mo kanina, Marites. Bakit ang army natin ang dominant? We don't have overlapping land claims with any country. Unlike in Europe, kaya malakas ang mga army nila because in Europe, their land borders are overlapping with other countries. Sa atin, wala. But we have overlapping maritime claims, sea and air claims with other countries. Diyan na lang sa West Philippine Sea. Contested area with Malaysia, with Taiwan, with China, with Brunei, even though wala siyang occupied na isla, but Brunei is a claimant. So, tingnan mo na lang. And yet, mahina pa ng Navy natin and we don't have a chief of staff na talagang masabi natin na white caps. For me, Marcos, hindi naman kailangan talaga na magkaroon ng Navy na chief of staff. What we need is the support or a high appreciation of the maritime nature of the country from our leaders. Like now, wala man lang tayo mga department level na focusing on maritime. Ang focus natin palagi, like say, the DOTR natin, ang focus ay lupa. Lupa pa rin. Kaya sabi ko kanina, we started looking inward. Since when, I do not know, Marites, bakit tayo look inward when 80% of our opportunities nandyan sa dagat?
Nakikita nyo ba, sir, na nagbabago na itong pagka-inward, pagka-parochial natin? Despite, is this changing and what do you think is leading to this change? Are you seeing, at least some movement towards wider appreciation of the Navy and of the maritime nature of our problems?
Yes, Martes. In fact, ito yung mga South China Sea and West Philippine Sea issues, it opened the minds, it opened the eyes of some of our decision makers and realized na we are so deficient in that area. Kung like our ISO, for example, Marites, itong internal security conflict natin, we are fighting an enemy na alam natin at any time of the day ay kayang-kaya natin talunin. But ito yung sa territorial defense natin, we are looking at the adversaries na alam natin mas superior sa atin by more than 20, 30 years. So, dapat doon tayo mag-focus. Kung ikaw ay isang estudyante, pag-aralan mo pa ba ang mga subjects na kung saan ka very proficient? O mag-focus ka siguro sa mga subjects mo na medyo deficient ka, doon tuunan mo ng pansin. That's how I look at our armed forces. The Navy is one area where we are so deficient. Siguro kailangan natin tuunan ng pansin ng Navy natin.
Sir, nabanggit nyo nga na the military has been fighting an insurgency. 50 years na tayo dyan. So, sa ngayon, at the present, ano ang hierarchy ba ng security threats sa bansa para doon ang focus or at least mabalance yung distribution ng forces at strategy?
Sa ngayon, Marites, I agree. Talagang number one pa rin itong internal armed conflict natin. In the hierarchy of national security threats natin, ito pa rin yung internal armed conflict. Kasi we are fighting an enemy from within. Ang ating kinakalaban ay mga kababayan din natin. So siguro, in order to achieve national unity, ito munang uunahin natin. And then, second, ito yung mga challenges to our territorial integrity and the maritime domain. So ito yung mga West Philippine Sea issues natin. And the third I see is the terrorism and other transnational threats natin coming from the Abu Sayyaf group, from the Dawiya, Islamiyah Magid, from the communist terrorist group. So again, Maltes, number one pa rin talaga itong ating internal armed conflict. Tapusin natin to, ang itong internal armed conflict. Believe me, we will progress by leaps and bounds, and we will be able to achieve this modern armed forces and the modern navy.
Sir, earlier you mentioned na the Navy has been on the front lines dito sa West Philippine Sea. Yung dispute natin with China, yung mga may incursions ng vessels. I remember in one webinar, you narrated, in fact, your first-hand experiences dito while you were a younger officer. Maybe just give us a perspective from the way the Navy dealt or confronted the Chinese aggressors from the time you were a young officer, sir, up to the time that you became flag officer in command.
Yes, Martes. Way back in the late 80s, I was a junior officer aboard ship, and I was assigned that time it was called Naval District 4, which is now our Naval Forces West, which has a responsibility over the West Philippine Sea. So when we conduct patrols, we will see some buoys being installed. Pinapasabog namin yan. And we don't hear any complaints, any protest from other countries. Kung may mga Chinese fishing vessels or may mga Vietnamese fishing vessels or whatever foreign countries, hinahabol namin yan. We board these vessels tapos dinadala sa Puerto Princesa City so that they will face court and pay the required penalties. This was the late 80s up to the 90s. Then then in the 90s, dami pa rin ito. Whenever we see buoys, mga parang markers kung saan-saan nakatanim, ay pinapasabog natin yan. Then way back in 2011 to 2013, I was the Task Force Commander, Naval Task Force 41, in charge of the West Philippine Sea. Under me are the floating and the air assets that patrol the West Philippine Sea. Ito na ngayon, if you remember right, this was the time that we filed a diplomatic protest, and that we filed this 2,000 page. This was a period that we filed a 2,000 page memorial to formalize our disputes in the West Philippine Sea. So ito ngayon, this was the start of the Chinese cabbage strategy, where they were already preventing our vessels from resupplying. This was the period when their destroyer, the Dongguan, got grounded in Hasa-Hasa Shoal. Ito yung mga panahon na yon. When I became entry in 2013, 2014, ito na ngayon, pumutok na yung sasabi nating cabbage strategy. When they prevented resupply vessels from going to Ayungin Shoal, no, hindi nila pinapapasok. We have to do a cat and mouse type of operation so that our vessels can go close to Ayungin Shoal and resupply or rotate our personnel assigned there. Itong mga panahon na yon. And then it was very clear, the then President Pinoy, he gave guidance to us to refrain from actions that will weaken our position in the arbitration. Yun ang sinasabi niya. So let us not provoke China. Kung if they will harass us, document it, and then that will form part of the 2,000-page memorial that will form part of our legal protest for China. When I became the flag officer in command of the Navy, so this period, talagang ang superiority ng PLA Navy over us, masyado ng dominant. Ang dominance na sa atin, masyado ng hindi lang apparent, but fortified na talaga. So ito na ngayon nung whenever we conduct, but that did not prevent us from conducting regular maritime and air patrols in the West Philippine Sea. They shadow us, they challenge us, And then dumami na ngayon itong period na dumami na yung mga Chinese maritime militia, mga Chinese fishing vessels in that area. And we realized as the flag officer in command, mas effective ang Coast Guard at saka yung BFAR, Bureau of Fisheries Vessels, in driving away these Chinese fishing vessels because that's how they do it in their country. If the gray ships, they don't mind the civilian ships. It has to be civilian agencies also dealing with civilian vessels. So that's my experience in the West Philippine Sea, starting from 1988 as a junior officer. When we were driving away and we were driving away, we were apprehending Chinese and Vietnamese fishing vessels in that area. Up to the time that they have become very dominant. What we've been doing now is shooing away this Chinese fishing vessel. But Martes, we have been documenting all of this. We have documented all of this and submit to the Department of Foreign Affairs for the filing of the proper diplomatic protest.
So, sir, you gave us a picture of, the Navy on the front lines of this maritime dispute. Can we also look at the Philippine Navy in contrast or in comparison? Paano ho ba nagko-compare ang ating Navy naman sa ating mga neighbors, like the countries comparable to us, Malaysia, Indonesia? Paano ho ba yung mga Navy nila compared to us? Tayo ba ang kulelat?
Ito sa mga, now that you've mentioned it, I'll give you an example, Maritesa. Our 2019 defense budget, I'll mention it in US dollars na para may common denominator tayo. Our 2019 defense budget is about 3.5 billion US dollars. So I don't know what part of that 3.5 billion US dollars is goes to the Navy. And kung tingnan natin ang Navy natin, we have 2 frigates, 1 corvette, 3 offshore patrol vessels, and 3 missile boats. Samantala, kung tingnan natin ang ibang country like Indonesia, itong kanilang Tentara Nasional Indonesia, Angkatan Laut, or just let me refer to it as the Indonesian Navy, this is considered to be the largest navy in Southeast Asia in terms of the number of personnel, in terms of the number of equipment, but they are still considered undersized for the vast waters it has to protect. Ang budget nila for the defense is about $7.43 billion. So that is about 2.1 times that of the Philippines. Ang kanilang assets, they have 5 submarines. Tayo, wala. They have 10 frigates and destroyers. Tayo, 2 lang. They have 21 corvettes. Tayo, 1 lang. They have 29 missile craft. Tayo, 3 lang. They have 12 offshore patrol vessels. Tayo, 3 lang. Ganun kalaki ng discrepancy. Ito naman ang Malaysia. Kung tingnan mo ang defense budget ng Malaysia, it is only in 2019 na tumaas ang defense budget ng Philippines compared to Malaysia by about 160 million US dollars. Because kung titingnan mo from 2008 up to 2018, mas mataas ang budget nila. Nagkaroon tayo ng malaking increase in 2019, increased by about 900 million US dollars. Kaya ito lang 2019 lang tayo naging mas mataas ang budget sa kanila. Pero before they did that, for so many years before that, they've already been modernizing their navy. Kung titinan mo ang kanilang navy, they have 2 submarines, tayo wala. They have 3 frigates, tayo 2 lang. They have 15 corvettes, tayo 1 lang. They have 8 missile craft, tayo 3 lang. They have 3 offshore patrol vessels, tayo 3 din ang ating offshore patrol vessels. Itong Singapore, I consider Singapore as the most potent, the most modern navy among the ASEAN navies. Ang kanilang defense budget is the largest in Southeast Asia. Tingnan mo lang 2019 defense budget nila, 11.3 billion US dollars. That is about 3.2 times that of the country. Tingnan mo how many times larger is the Philippines than Singapore, and yet their defense budget is 3.2 times larger than us. Tingnan mo ang kanilang navy, they have 4 submarines. Napakalit na navy, but they have 4 submarines. Tayo wala. They have 6 frigates, tayo dalawa lang. They have 8 corvettes, tayo isa lang. And if there is a navy in Southeast Asia that can match other Western countries, ito yun, Singapore yun. O tingnan natin itong Thailand. Itong Thailand, ang defense budget nila sa 7.1 billion US dollars. That is twice that of the country, ang defense budget nila. Mayroon silang aircraft carrier. So among ASEAN countries, Thailand pa lang ang mayroong aircraft carrier. Wala din silang submarino katulad sa atin. They have 10 frigates, tayo uli, dalawa lang. They have 5 corvettes, tayo isa lang. They have 6 missile boats, tayo tatlo lang. So ibig sabihin, itong mga countries na binanggit ko, naiiwan tayo. Ito pa, Vietnam. Itong Vietnam, kumbaga late bloomer itong Vietnam. Kung tingnan mo lang, Vietnam has a strong military tradition and its armed forces have more operational experience than its neighbors. Ito na lang kanilang defense budget is estimated to be 5.2 billion US dollars. That is 1.5 times more than us. Samantala ating coastline, how many times longer than that of Vietnam? They have 8 submarines. Kaya I believe of all countries here in the ASEAN, kung may kinakatakutan man ng China, it is the Vietnam People's Navy. They have 4 frigates. Tayo, dalawa lang. They have 16 corvettes. Tayo, isa lang. Such a small country compared to us. In terms of coastline, and yet, in terms of the number of islands, and yet, napakalayo ng diferensya nila sa atin. Lalo na Marites, if I will compare all of these ASEAN countries, navies to that of China, yon beyond compare na ang mangyayari.
So, sir, mahirap na mag-compare with China. Don't they have the largest navy in the world or second largest? Ang China.
I believe they have the second largest navy in the world. Hindi pa rin nila ma-overtaken ang US. Napakalayo pa rin ng US, especially in terms of strategic capabilities, in terms of submarines, aircraft carriers, intercontinental ballistic missiles. Nangunguna pa rin ang US. But in Asia, no doubt, China has the most capable navy and also the most capable armed forces.
Sir, there's a question from one of our viewers, Ms. Carion. She says, so kung since 2019 there had been an increase in budget, ibig sabihin ba na nag-improve na rin on how the government deals with the situation? I think you answered this a bit earlier, but please maybe explain it again.
Yes, Marites, there's been a significant increase in appreciation. Kung titinan mo na lang ang modernization budget, so much of that from let's say from 2018, 2019, the modernization budget, a big chunk of that goes to the Navy and the Air Force. I'm really happy about these changes, pero mas gusto ko rin sana na hindi lang government leaders natin, pati ang ating kababayan will realize we are a maritime nation. We have a strong maritime history. Ang kultura natin ay maritime. Since when lang ba tayo nag-look inland? Kailan lang? Balik natin yung dati.
Yeah. Yes, so I think sir, it goes beyond the leadership. Baka kailangan meron talagang education on maritime history and maritime awareness starting from the children in school. Maybe that's of course beyond what the Navy can do, but it's a good idea to bring out there. Sir, just to read a comment on Facebook, which is very supportive of the Navy, from Francis Chua. He says, the Navy deserves to receive a substantial portion of the military's budget, the lion's share, no less, in the same vein as maritime nations like Japan, Indonesia, Australia, the US, and South Korea. So that's one supportive viewer here. So, sir,
Thank you. Can I thank him? Thank you, Francis. Yes. Thank you, Francis, for that comment, and I hope you can influence our government leaders to that view of yours. Thank you very much, Francis.
So, sir, meron bang cooperation among the Southeast Asian navies? Like, ang galing pala ng Singapore. I mean, I didn't realize that they had such a formidable Navy. So meron ba tayong cooperation so that we also learn from them skills, or that can we do joint patrols with them, sir?
Yes, yes. In fact, we have several bilateral exercises and multilateral exercises, and also cooperation. Like this maritime training activity Seagull, that is our yearly activity with the Royal Brunei Navy, and which is done, let's say, which is done regularly with the Royal Brunei Navy. We also have a bilateral training activity with Malaysia, and that is the Malfilaut between the Philippine Navy and the Royal Malaysian Navy. And also with Indonesia, the Philindo, which means Philippine Indonesia. And the CCAT, this is a multilateral maritime exercise with the US and ASEAN countries. So not only ASEAN countries, but also with the US. And the RIMPAC, this is a US Navy hosted exercise, the largest actually in the world, wherein we are invited, and some ASEAN navies participating usually are the Philippine Navy, the Royal Singapore Navy, the Royal Malaysian Navy, and the Royal Thai Navy. And we have another multilateral exercise. This one is hosted by Indonesia, which is Komodo. This is hosted by the Republic of Indonesia Navy. We have joint exercises, we have bilateral, multilateral exercises with them. And ito sa trilateral borders natin, Marites, we have cooperation with the Indonesian Navy and the Royal Malaysian Navy, where in that trilateral boundary, we conduct coordinated patrol, not only sea patrols but also aerial patrols. We have several cooperation with with other ASEAN navies.
So sir, pero walang patrols sa West Philippine Sea, walang joint patrols.
That wala tayong joint patrol in the West Philippine Sea because that is we are in compliance to the 2002 Declaration of Conduct of Parties in the South China Sea, of which the Philippines is a signatory. One of the provisions there is that countries should refrain from activities that will jeopardize the situation or will increase the tensions in that area. So kung pansinin mo, if the claimant countries like Malaysia, like Vietnam, like the Philippines, we do not do coordinated patrols in that area because that is a what do you call this, contested area. Pero ang nagva-violate lang dyan is the Chinese Navy because ang kanilang exercises involve sometimes firing of missiles. They do exercises in that area and the firing of the missiles. So of the signatories there, I can say that the country that violated the 2002 Declaration of Conduct of Parties in the South China Sea is China. We do not violate that because we signed that document. Blas Ople was the one that signed the document November of 2002.
Sir, maybe final question lang, sir. Since you have left the Navy, how will you keep your advocacy on maritime awareness and, not just from our leaders, from, as you were saying, from the public as well? How will you keep this alive, or do you have plans, sir, of coming to the private sector or government?
Martes, actually very thankful ako sa iyo because you invited me here to be the resource person. Because my advocacy is a strong Philippine Navy to address all of these issues. So itong pag-imbita mo sa akin, it gave me the opening to talk about the need for us to have a strong Philippine Navy. So thank you very much. And regarding a future project, second career, will I work in government or will I work in the private sector? For now, I'm working for the family. It is my time now to catch up for the lost time with my children and with my wife. Bawi muna ako sa kanila, Marites.
Thank you so much, Sir Vice Admiral Giovanni Carlo Bacordo. It was a fascinating interview and very informative. You opened, I think, our minds to the issues, the maritime issues facing the country. So thank you to our viewers and to our listeners, and of course, thank you to our resource person. And we hope we will continue, sir, the conversations on maritime issues and the need to be aware of the maritime disputes surrounding the Philippines. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.